Hello and welcome to another episode of Killer Ant Reviews. Today we'll be talking about Terry Goodkind's Wizard's First Rule. So I did a little research on this, and during it I actually found that they actually made a TV series produced by Sam Raimi called The Seeker. It only lasted like a couple seasons, but basically this book was actually pretty good, although I did have a few complaints. First, I'd like to get into the author, Terry Goodkind. Unfortunately, he actually passed away last year at age 72, which is kind of sad, because he did make this huge series. This is basically the first book. The book is basically a guy named Richard, who basically becomes like the Seeker, who can basically go around like killing like people who are evil. He also meets a woman who ends up being also like a confessor, someone who can basically, she touches a guy, they have to like obey her. And there's a few other things, and her entire goal is to take out like an evil wizard. Overall, like I said, it's a decent book. It's also a very, very long book. Not as long as some of the other books I've read. I know Game of Thrones and The Way of the Kings were way longer. I guess like one of my first complaints about this book is it may be a little too long. There's a couple of sections that just kept going on and on and on. The first time was when the characters meet like a group called the Mud People. That was kind of a slog to get through. I felt like it just kept going. They could have definitely reduced that by a couple chapters, because all it did was just like look at the relationship between the two, but it didn't really add much, and it was kind of forgettable. The second part that I didn't like, for about 3 or 4 chapters, the main character basically gets tortured for that long, and after a while I'm like, yes, I know he's in pain, he's hopeless, you don't need to keep hitting me over the head with it. It's been literally like 80 to 100 pages of that, and it was getting really depressing. The main villain is okay. He's obviously not the best, he's obviously evil, but I think the problem was he actually gets overshadowed by a few other evil people. The person who tortures the main character, Richard, for like 4 chapters, she's definitely evil, and they also kind of give her like a little bit of sympathetic. It's like, no, I don't like this character. Just get rid of her. There's also an evil queen and princess too. The princess basically enjoys torturing people, and the queen also does that too. Luckily, you don't have to see too many of those, because, oh my god, I freaking hate them. I don't say that to a lot of characters, but they were just like a little over the top, but they also like overshadowed the main guy. But overall, it is actually, but that's only in like the negative stuff. Overall, it's a very excellent adventure. The characters, they have a few other ones. They had a character named Zed, who's like an old wizard. Chase, who's like a soldier. And there's also a few other minor characters, including like a servant girl who runs away with the box, which the wizard, which has like something that the main villain needs. Overall, those characters were pretty well defined, and and the 2 main characters, they definitely work well off each other. So overall, this is actually, if you can actually slog through a couple sections, I definitely recommend this book. I'm hoping that the next book will be as good. I had heard some other negative reviews about the other books, but there's some books that had good reviews that I didn't like, and some books that not as good, but I actually ended up liking. So I take other people's reviews with a grain of salt. So what would I give this book? Yeah, I'm actually going between 2 grades. I'm going to give this an 8.25. Yeah, I usually just do on a 0.5 scale. But I was like, oh, should it be an 8? But then again, this, but 8.5. 8.25. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm hoping that the next book will be as good as this one. So until next time, this is Killer Ant.